From crease to crease and corner to corner, Bettor Hockey Now is NHL fantasy and betting done better. Step into the dot for Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network.
Welcome in to the 12th edition of Bettor Hockey Now here on the Bettor Sports Network. I'm Adam Bernard, and my line mates, as always, are Mr. Christopher Morez to my right, if you're looking at the screen, and below me is Mr. Anthony Rivera. Fellas, how are we doing today? We got a couple of weekends left in the summer. How are we?
It's the best day of the week because it's the start of the weekend, and it's another episode of Bettor Hockey Now, another mock draft. And like Chris always says, we are another week away from the start of the NHL season. So I'm excited.
I can smell it. I can smell the season. It's coming. It's right here. That fresh ice that's done with the paint and everything. You know, the arenas do it again. You can just smell it from the outside. I'm excited.
Now, we've been having to do mock drafts on ESPN, but in another sign that the season is getting closer, Yahoo Hockey mock drafts are now live. So we will be conducting today's mock draft via Yahoo. So excited for that. Also coming up on the show, we'll wrap up today with a little Rick Jeanneret talk. Rest in peace to him. Condolences to the Jeanneret family and the Sabres community. 50-year play-by-play voice. Always tough to lose that. There's a piece missing from the team now, if you're a diehard. We'll talk more about that later. Today's focus is going to be on defensemen. We did centers already. We did wings, left and right. Also boneless or bone in, but we won't go down that path again. And we're going to have goalies coming up, but today is going to be all about the D-man in the back. So all about those all about the blue line today. And one way to get started talking about the blue line here is the cover model for NHL24 is, the bona fide number one defenseman. If you're taking anybody, if you're looking to take a defenseman and you don't take Cale Makar and he's available, you're being very silly. Deserves to be on the cover, but there is the curse. We hear about it in Madden on the football side, but as you see here on the screen, if you look down the right graphic, starting in NHL 97, I had NHL 97 for the PC. I remember that game. That intro was burned into my brain. I could still hear. Yeah. Oh man. But if you look down the list there, only one person, we had Vladimir Tarasenko lost in the second round, and then Patrick Kane bucked the trend by winning the cup in 2010. Other than that, they either miss the playoffs or don't make the first round. So, is the Avalanche blue line in trouble? Should you not take Cale Makar as the first defenseman off the board because of the curse? What do we say, fellas?
I'm still taking him. I just don't think the Colorado Avalanche are going to do very well. And I will say this, it did, right? Trevor Zegras was there, but we'll give him a pass because nobody was expecting the Ducks to do anything. So, saying the Ducks missed the playoffs because Trevor Zegras may have been on the cover is kind of unfair to Trevor Zegras and the Ducks organization. There was no shot there. Also, those names on there are just, the first one I got was NHL 99 with Lindros on the cover for my N64. And then I went, I think it was from 2003 till 2008. I had them consecutively. And just the playlist of choices in music you could choose. You can hear all the music from, Van Wiesberg in 97. I can just hear, all the songs. You can just play on repeat or, designing. I remember I could design Ovechkin's classic stick and whatnot, and the visor, right? The vector that he had. It was a good time to be alive then.
Yes, it was. I probably played the most NHL in that 97 era as a kid. And then, you move out, you get your own place, who's got an Xbox, who's got this. So that NHL, will say 07 era through 10 was probably when I was playing most. Then got back into it again, when I got a PS4 right around, NHL 17 and that era. And then, you have a kid and then that goes out the window in terms of time for video games. But Anthony, so Cale Makar, are you a believer in curses in general, Madden curse, any of that stuff? Does that affect how you will maybe draft a guy or bet or look at a team?
I don't know if it will affect how I draft Cale Makar. I might, and we've all done this in the mock drafts, I might draft another scoring defenseman right after him. on the return. That way I can solidify the top line, or if one of them gets hurt, it could slot right in there and score the point. So yeah, I don't think you can not take Cale Makar. He's the best defenseman, top tier number one defenseman on the list when it comes to fantasy. I had, speaking of the NHL games, I had a conversation with Coupe A Fiasco yesterday when we were producing High Stakes, and he was talking about playing video games. And since he covers fantasy football, I said, hey, are you going to be getting the new Madden this year? And he goes, yeah, I don't really play Madden. I play NHL. And that tells you, and it really does, that I do feel that the NHL game is better than Madden. I feel like Madden is overrated. The NHL game is so realistic. I don't know if you guys saw the trailer and all the new additions that they added to this game, but it really looks good. I tried finding all the games that I had of NHL, and I thought I had a lot. I only have 4 of them. And that's because I used to live with my my roommate and good friend who got me into hockey, and we would play most of it in his house. So he has most of the games, but I do got 21.
There you go.
I got NHL 18. We got Connor McDavid up there.
There you go.
NHL 12, I think, was the start of the new consoles for me. But the big one, the holy grail of NHL games. NHL 94 for the Sega Genesis, right there. Look at that. Look at that beautiful cover. Look at it. Looks like a VHS tape. That's how good this game was.
No, let me stop you right there. So people, a VHS tape, if you don't know, it's this like rectangular black plastic with the magnetic tape on the inside. Tape's this big. You put it in something called a VCR. For a little while, there was something called Beta that didn't last too long. And then, and the thing about VHS tapes is every time you played it, it lost a little bit of quality. But let's face it.
And look at this cartridge. I mean, they're not cartridges anymore. They're either discs or those little memory cards. But man, that thing is thick, right? And
you don't even need a cartridge or a disc anymore. You can buy the digital version.
And then you got Ron Barr on the book. I mean, he used to be always in the intro telling you about the teams and what was going to be happening in the game. So NHL 94 is by far my favorite game, sports game. I love that game.
They always said that, you'd blow in the cartridges, but in hindsight, that was not the thing to do, apparently, even though it worked.
It was not.
But it works sometimes, But that was more with the old Nintendo consoles. But I'm not back. I'm not going to let this affect my prediction on the Avalanche too much. I'm not a big curse person, unless it's you hear about these guys, the first guys in the Egyptian pyramids back in the early 1900s, and then they would get back from these expeditions and die from this random disease that one person a year dies from, or their pets would get really sick and die from some random disease. Now I'm buying in on a curse. Now I'm starting to believe a little bit, but beyond that, no, not for me. I think the Avalanche will be just fine. They didn't win the cup last year, but they were out without Landeskog the entire year, and they were still a pretty good team. So I think they'll be okay.
I'm just worried that Makar is going to come down with, he's going to cut his hand on he's preparing his kale, right, to put in his smoothie with his spinach, and he slices his hand open, and then it's, he needs 10 stitches, and it's between the finger, and then it's 8 to 12 weeks that he's out. It's something like that. That's what these curses are about. It's not that's what I expect may happen to him, unfortunately. So
you may definitely get a lot of people to not draft Cale Makar so that you can get Cale Makar.
I'm definitely on that team. I am the president of making sure that you don't draft Cale Makar so I can have him, so I can deal with all those injuries that, those freak things that happen. How many times we see players hurt themselves for no reason? So I would like him to hire a personal chef and have him stay away from every sharp object that is not his blade on his skate.
We're burying the lead here a little bit. How does a guy like Cale Makar, how is there not a fruit vegetable chain in the Midwest or the Rockies that doesn't have a line of kale with just him on the cover, him on the package? And there's nowhere, just there it is. That's kale. Kale's kale. I don't know how they don't do it.
I would buy it.
I would buy it. I don't dislike kale, but if I listen, if I'm walking down the produce aisle and I see Cale Makar on a bag, all right, I'll grab it.
Would you have him sign it? Would you have him sign the package?
I don't know if I'd have him sign the package, because if you left those bagged vegetables go for a while, it could get pretty rancid.
You can eat the kale,
Eat it,
but
just keep the
you
bag.
hold the bag and have him sign.
At his autograph signing, you're like, hey, Cale, can you sign this bag of kale for me?
He probably would get it a lot if he had his own brand at that point. So yes,
would.
absolutely, I would get that signed, put it in a frame,
Collector's edition.
Now, speaking of defensemen, he is the number one defenseman, as we talked about. Now, let's get on the screen here, the hockey news. So we look at this list of top 10, 1 through 10. You got Cale Makar, Rasmus Dahlin, Miro Heiskanen, Dougie Hamilton, Roman Josi, Quinn Hughes, Adam Fox, Erik Karlsson. This was before the trade. Hockey News hasn't released any updated rankings. I'm sure it's coming out very soon. Brandon Montour in Florida, Josh Morrissey. On the honorable mention side, you got Mikhail Sergachev, Brent Burns, Vince Dunn, John Carlson, Noah Dobson. So let's talk about tiers here. For you guys, who is in tier 1 for you? Because for me, the only person in tier 1 is Cale Makar. I think he's in a tier to himself.
No, Cale Makar does a lot of great things. He collects points. He can score goals. He can shoot. What he doesn't do is block a ton of shots, which is fine. I can live with that. But I would add, I think, especially in terms of fantasy, I would say Dahlin has his spot there for sure. And maybe not anymore, but still close enough would be Roman Josi. Because again, for the same thing, Josi can shoot the puck. If I get a defenseman who can rack up points, score goals, take shots, and block them, what else can he, the only thing he can do is stop the puck. He doesn't get goals, goals against average and save percentage. That's the only thing he can't rack up. So when you have a player who is producing at that high level, there were multiple nights where I would play Rasmus Dahlin in DFS, and even if he didn't get a point, it's fine. He had 5 or 6, 7 shots on goal, 4 block shots. He played 28 minutes, and he was just well exceeding his value without ever registering a point. One of my favorites. If I was going to pay up for a defenseman, I'm going to pay up for somebody who's going to do all of that and more. So I am perfectly fine with Cale being at the top of that leaderboard in terms of points, but I would like to have Rasmus Dahlin there. He's only going to get better as well. And I know Roman Josi, like I said, is getting up there, but man, it's hard to look at Roman Josi, especially the Predators team, and go, well, he's not going to get there, because outside of him, that team's pretty mid.
And your take on tier 1 versus how inclusive tier 1 should be?
No, I think that Chris is right there. And, especially me being a huge, Dougie Hamilton guy, I feel like he is right there, tier 2 top, right there. He could get to that next tier, but I feel like he's right there at tier 2. Makar, Dahlin, Heiskanen, Josi, those are definitely the guys. And, it's very important, especially in fantasy hockey, that you get a guy that not only shoots goals and gets assists, but, shots on goal, very important. Hits, very important. Blocks, especially when there are different tiers to the point system. I know in my league that blocks was a huge, point getter, and you better have had some guys that got some good blocks, because, that could be an extra point to you winning a match. So those guys are very important that way. And, yeah, I definitely agree with how this tier is set. And, like we have here, tier 3 being Quinn Hughes. He's more an assist getter, but he does provide a lot of points. Didn't have that many goals, which I would hope there would be an uptick in goals for him this coming season. But he was right there with assists, so that helped him, get up there in the top 10 of point getters.
I also don't worry about defensemen and hits, especially for elite guys, because it is impossible to hit somebody if that puck is stuck to your stick. So I'll let the rest of the other, 130 defensemen that are in the NHL, I guess. I'll take Radko Gudas at some point, or I'll find, somebody, Luke Shen. I'll find these guys at the bottom of the barrel if I need a hit it, right? If I'm close in hits to me is kind of in the same category as plus minus. I don't really care for it. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, cool. I'm not worried about it. I'll find somebody who just bangs out hits and that's it. But defensemen to me, as long as all those categories that you said, as long as they're racking up points and blocks and everything, just give it to me. Put it in my veins.
Hits can always be found if you need a guy to. You don't easier than block shots too. You can find a guy to get hits. I mean, and that's the thing with defensemen. Like you take a couple of top, offensive defensemen, and then that last defenseman, in your third or fourth spot that you're playing, that's where you're rotating your guy that's going to get 4 or 5 hits a night. That's where you get that source from. Now, maybe I should have referred to them as tier 1A and 1B because I would have it listed as my tier 2 guys, which was really more of a 1B. Rasmus Dahlin, Miro Heiskanen, Roman Josi, Dougie Hamilton, Adam Fox. Erik Karlsson is the bottom of that tier. And Anthony, as you mentioned, Quinn Hughes, to me, is the start of tier 3, at least in my personal rankings. The reason I have Karlsson towards the bottom of that tier is what we discussed is, yes, it's a fantastic fit. He's going to get points and all that, but they're not going to trot him out the same amount of minutes that San Jose did. They're not going to run him they're not going to run him ragged. So, and when you have a guy like Chris Letang, you don't need, they're going to trade off. So I think he'll be productive in his time out there, but I don't think he's going to get even close to what he got last year in terms of points. I think he's going to be at least 10 to 15 lower than that just because of his usage.
Can we also talk about how just John Carlson has fallen off the face of the earth here and nobody's batting an eye, but yet this is a player who can easily top 60 points when healthy. We understand the Capitals are a bad team, but he is on the power play with Alexander Ovechkin. And considering the injuries with, Nick Backstrom in his hips and Evgeny Kuznetsov and whatever, he's still good. And I think people forget that just because he was hurt for so long last year. But this is a player who can produce and just feed Ovi the puck in his office and collect. Again, he's not going to block a whole bunch of shots, and that's fine. And he's probably not going to shoot the puck a ton just because there's so many good shooters on it. You also add Max Pacioretty to that lineup, and you probably take off some shots. But the Capitals are not going to be a very good team. They're going to be playing a lot of catch-up hockey, and he's going to be on the ice. He's going to be there a lot. The only player who could take something away from him is Rasmus Sandin. Yes, Sandin. He's the only player I think who can really maybe dig in a little bit to his ice time or a little bit into his offensive production. But again, that's a slight risk. If I'm getting Karlsson outside of that top 10 of defensemen that we just named, I'm happy. I should have never mentioned it. Everybody can just not listen to what I just said. Just forget it, right? Men in Black.
We'll edit this out in post. We'll get rid of this
correct and just leave it as a secret because that's where I would go.
Well,
when you look at go ahead, Ant.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a good strategy, right? You're going to keep your eye on John Carlson as the draft keeps going because this is a guy who probably last year is in that top 10, right? He's in that top 10 tier probably with the rest of these guys. He scores a lot of points, like you mentioned. So, as these guys are coming off the draft and you're looking to get defensemen, if he is your, 1B defenseman that you get or your third defenseman, that's a pretty good get there with John Carlson.
Now,
he played 40 games last season only. 29
he played 40
points,
games last year, 9 goals, 20 assists, double that. So it's 18 goals, 40 assists. That's still a decent season.
And didn't he get hit? That's how he got hurt. Didn't he have a concussion?
He's had 370 plus points in the last 5 years. He's 33. He's not falling apart yet.
And even in his 52 game season, he still had 44 points. So that's just under a point a game at that point. So
this wasn't a Max Pacioretty injury where he's messed up his knees and all. I think he suffered a concussion, like he got hit in the face.
Yeah,
right. That was the injury, and he came back and he still scored points. So, I mean, this is a good
Washington's decor as of right now, right? Nick Jensen, Trevor Riemsdyk, Martin Ferravari, Joel Edmondson, and Rasmus Sandin. So there's not many people who are going to be digging into his ice time offensively, right? Correct. They got a lot of guys who are just going to, play defense, protect and whatnot. So Carlson could be that guy who's just going to be out there a lot when they are trailing because they need a goal or something. And maybe he bumps to 24, 25 minutes a night and I sleep well.
Well, if you're not in any of our leagues, make sure you keep an eye on him. If you're in our league, stay away.
He's gone.
Keep in mind too that the Capitals have said that they're, as long as Ovechkin is still playing, they are not gonna go into rebuild mode. which means they're going to play these guys like Carlson and Ovechkin, and they're playing them into the ground. They are, they are getting every last drop of mileage out of them. So that's also, if you're, to Chris's point about, listen, Carlson, it's all set up for him to get a ton of playing time anyway. And at least this year, especially because he missed half a season last year, if they're going to run him out there in an Erik Karlsson San Jose fashion like last year, this is going to be the year they do it. So Carlson's a guy you want now. That's it's interesting to kind of call him a sleeper, but he kind of is because, he missed half the year last year. Any other sleeper defensemen that you guys are targeting or, thinking about, grabbing in the middle rounds, late rounds kind of thing?
I was thinking of Ben Sherratt from Detroit. Second pairing with Jeff Petrie, second power play unit, PK unit as well. The guy has over 100 shots on goal, 163 blocks. I think him and Petrie in that second line will feed off each other pretty well. That's someone that I'm looking later on. I'm not saying look, at the top, someone later on in the rounds. I know he's a guy that I picked up last season, and he really did fill in for when I had a couple of injuries. He eventually got hurt himself, and then I had to drop him and pick somebody else up. But he did fill the void for me when I needed extra days. Even if you don't draft him late rounds, definitely someone to keep an eye out for on the waiver wire.
Anybody else, Chris, for you that you're looking on the blue line?
I'm just going to go the complete opposite of what Anthony said. I want nothing to do with Ben Sherratt. Absolutely nothing. First of all, Jeff Petrie has come in, so that's going to eat into whatever ice time he is, right? You have Shane Gostisbehere who's there as well. They brought in Justin Hall. It is what it is, but he's not going to be there, right? You don't pay him $3.4 million to sit on the bench, so he's going to do something, right? Moritz Seider is still the defenseman there, so he's still going to dig into a whole lot. I get where Ben Sherratt's value is going to come, and it's going to be playing defense. He doesn't do that very well anymore. So I don't know where you're going to get that value from him unless 3 or 4 of those guys fall off their chairs, break some ankles, I don't know, cut their hand with a knife. But I mean, Jake Wallman is there. Oli Mata is still there. Like, these are unfortunate. Like, I don't know. Ben Sherratt has a lot of like real life qualities that coaches love in defensemen. I don't see him being out there enough. Even as a guy who you can say, oh, he's just going to be on the penalty kill a lot. The same way Luke Shen was. He's going to go out there. He's going to block shots. He's going to hit and whatnot. I could see Ben Sherratt playing less than 20 minutes a night on that, with that number of defensemen in that lineup. And if they're supposed to be a better team with all these additions, as long as they keep getting better, it's not going to be because of Ben Sherratt. Again, it's not Jeff Petrie as well. Those two played together in Montreal. They had a great time together a little bit. Defensively, they struggled. And now here they are 3 years later, older. Not sure if they're wiser, but the skill is just not going to be there. I'm just not going to go anywhere near Ben Sherratt. I want to ship him to a different island.
Other than Seider, I'm not looking at the Red Wings blue line too much, but I will say, Petrie is a guy that, you might be like a last bench guy or a guy you pick up if somebody gets hurt. Gostisbehere, let's see what role he has, unless he's just going to kind of get power play time and then get benched otherwise. A couple of guys I'm going to throw out there. Listen, I know Roman Josi is the guy in Nashville, but Tyson Barrie is the puck moving defenseman. So if Nashville finds themselves in a situation where they need offense late, yeah, they're going to have Josi out there. But yeah, they're going to have Barrie pushing the puck. He runs a second power play unit. So that's a guy that I would think on a pairing like with Ryan McDonough, he's going to have the freedom to do what he does because he's also not really a defensively strong guy either. But you don't got to worry about that with him if you do care about plus minus because McDonough's going to cover him because McDonough's defensively sound. Philip Hronek in Vancouver, similar kind of thing. We all know it's going to be Quinn Hughes as the top guy. But if he goes down, he moves up. He's running that second power play unit. If you're looking for defensemen that are going to give you some power play points but aren't going to cost you a lot, look for the guys running those second units. And that's where Hronek comes in. Vancouver may not be a good team this year, but I could see them scoring a lot of goals, getting into some high-scoring games, so maybe that helps. And then lastly, kind of like a deep one, Brandt Clark out in L.A., 61 points in 31 major junior games from the blue line. Now, you look at a team like the Kings, they got a decent blue line there. Drew Doughty's kind of like the de facto defenseman on the power play because he's just a well-rounded guy and he's been doing it for so long. But Clark is a guy that I could see getting, but once if he sticks and he get some serious opportunities with LA. Yes, Matt Roy can move the puck and be all right with it. Yes, Mikey Anderson can kind of do it. But if you got a guy that is like Clark, that's going to be the guy that's going to be getting those opportunities. Other guys that are just kind of to fill in or if there's an injury. So I can see that being a really deep sleeper or somebody to keep on your radar for a pickup maybe early in the season. All right, so we're going to do another mock draft here in our mock draft series. We're getting ready to go here on Yahoo, which is very, very nice compared to, we'll say ESPN. We got we're in here where it looks like we're going to go. The draft is loading now. Chris is going to be in the 6th spot, Anthony in the 9. I will be in the turn at 12, and then a Corey. We'll assume Corey Stillman. We'll assume it's former NHLer Corey Stillman in the 10 spot. So nice to have one human in the draft with us. We did see the comment last week. We got to figure out a way that we could get in touch with people that want to do that, so that way we can set it up and do the mock drafts with some live humans. So with this defenseman talk today, are we thinking we're going to go defenseman heavy like we've been in the past, or what's the strategy going in here? Anything we're looking to focus on today?
I mean, I know where I'm going, guys. We've done right. We know where my allegiance lines with my team, and so unless you guys decide that you want to stick a fork into it, then I'll have to pivot and do something else. But I kind of want to target those defensemen early, and then I want to just see, forwards you can get a bunch of. There's no shortage of guys who can put the puck in the net, pick up 60, 65 points. 60, 65 points from your forward, it's a good year. But you're not going to get very many elite defensemen, unfortunately.
A format here a little different than previous weeks where on ESPN where we were limited to forwards and defensemen and goaltenders, where now the wings come into play. So now we actually get to do some real mock drafting here and get in the nitty gritty. 2 centers, 2 left wings, 2 right wings, 4 defensemen. 4 is a number. Usually you see 3. 4 is you got to really pay attention. You can't sleep on it too much. 2 goalies, 4 bench spots. So I don't know if we're going to be cornering goal 2. I don't know if anybody's going to be cornering both goalie tandems for their teams today, but because with only 4 bench spots, it gets a little tough to do that. But we'll see what happens here in a minute as we get ready to do the 5th mock draft here on Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network. And speaking of mock drafts, again, right in the middle of fantasy football draft season, NFL season is right around the corner. You could start a free 7-day trial of Fantasy Alarm's All Pro subscription and get the fantasy football draft guide and cheat sheet for free. Go to fantasyalarm.com/cheat sheet. I know I've been in a rookie dynasty draft. I've been using that to help me right now. It's you really get a lot of bang for your buck, but hey, just need it for 7 days and want to get to the draft and leave. I don't know if you're going to want to leave, but if you can, if you will want, but it's a lot of good content over there. Get you ready. And it's also good stuff throughout the football season, throughout other sports. Mr. Christopher Merez right there. You see his content on the website during the NHL season. So let me mute this so I don't get
in the Discord and tell me all about your love for boneless chicken wings and why the Toronto Maple Leafs are winning the Stanley Cup.
I mean, I would buy that boneless wings or wings before I buy the Leafs are going to win the cup. So, all right, draft is going here. It's moving along pretty quickly. And now on numbers, Chris is on the clock at number 6. We'll see what, McDavid, Draisaitl, Pasternak, McKinnon, Tkachuk, all go in the top 5. No surprises there. And he's it's still a 30-second clock, but it feels like it's a little bit of a slower clock than ESPN. ESPN's was probably more like 27 seconds than a true 30. This feels like a full 30. He's really mulling it over. What is he going to do? He takes Jason Robertson. Kucherov goes. There goes Mikko Rantanen at 8. Anthony on the clock here at 9. Love that Rantanen pick. I've professed my love for him numerous times on these mock drafts here. So, we'll see where Ant goes here. He's got 15 seconds on the clock, followed by Corey, then team 11, called the Mark Messier team, and then
I don't know how to pick here. What's going on? I pressed on the player, but what's going on my screen here? Oh, there we go.
All right. So Tage Thompson, Georgiev, Brady, Tkachuk. I mean, sorry, Ant. And in this league, he's got center left wing eligibility. Got to take him there. And I prefer. Hey, listen, I know we talked to draft board, but I'm going to get my cornerstone blue liner there. Hughes and Makar at the turn in the first round. That is not a bad way to go.
Unfortunate.
So Anthony, back on the clock here. Now let's take a look at our friend Corey's team. Let's see what he did. So Ant takes Igor Shesterkin. So a little bit of a bite back there. If you're going to take my number one player, I'm going to take your number one goalie. So Shesterkin goes for Ant along with Tage Thompson. That's not a bad, pseudo kind of turn pick play there either with Thompson and one of the top goalies in the league.
Yeah, Thompson wasn't my original pick because my button was covered for the draft, and as soon as I was going to press it, it had already drafted him. But I will take him, and I will take Shesterkin, that's for sure.
All right, so we are moving along here. Chris back on the clock. So let's see. Chris, he took in the first round. He decided on Jason Robertson after mulling it over for the full 30 seconds. That is a tough spot to pick at 6 because you could really go a few different directions there for sure. So that's not a spot I would necessarily want to be. Thanks for stealing it from me, actually, in hindsight, as we came into the show.
There you go. I'm going to go double goalie here. Get that out of the way now.
Wow, okay. So you get Connor Hellebuck, and you are all set there, huh? Jake Attinger and Connor Hellebuck. How do you feel about that?
Love it. My goaltender, 2 goalies were going to play a ton. As of today, I cannot. No, that's not true. I think Scott Wedgwood is the backup in Dallas.
Yes.
No idea who it is in Winnipeg, and that's a good sign. I want my goalies, both of them, to play a decent amount of games. So I am ecstatic that my goaltending is solved. My defense is not.
I think I've waited too long on goaltending, but we will see. And you grabbed it with your last pick, Tim Stützle. I love that. He does so much. I'm a big fan of his, and I think Ottawa's really going to have they're going to have a nice season this year, and a lot of those guys are going to have good seasons that you're in their top 6.
Yeah, I'm definitely banking on Ottawa. Stützle had a good season last year. I'm definitely banking on him doing it again this year, and the entire team being a lot better than they were last year.
I also want to point out the fact that Yahoo is using plus minus. I know Ant was talking about his favorite game being from 1994, but we are drafting in 2023. So do not worry about it.
I did not mean to pick Panarin there. The clock ran out on me, but I certainly won't mind Panarin there. But I do want to get my goalie situation settled. I don't love what's here right now. So you know what? I'm going to call an audible. Not doing it. I'm going to wait on goalie. Give me Hughes, Panarin, and Meyer. I'll be watching a lot of Devils and Rangers hockey this year.
That's a lot of shot on goals.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of unintended, but I really wanted to go. And sometimes that's a problem is you really want to shore up a spot, but you don't love the value there. So you kind of get forced to go elsewhere. And I don't mind that. I don't mind, Panarin kind of was a product of the clock, but I'll take it. We'll see. But let's see. Back on the clock right now is Corey before Anthony makes his pick. Corey takes JT Miller. And Anthony's going to be on the clock right now. So Corey, and he takes Adam Fox. So it's kind of like a snipe battle right here from across the Hudson. I mean, technically across a continent from where I live now, but like in terms of teams, we're sniping across the Hudson River. Now, is that any partially intentional, or is it just happy coincidences?
I think definitely the second was a happy coincidence. And since you talked about it being only a 2-goalie game, it was time to take one of the top goalies and go after Shesterkin.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. If you can only have room for that, you want a workhorse in this kind of format. You want a guy that you're going to trot out there. Now, I don't know if Jonathan Quick is worth your last pick of the draft just to shore up the Rangers goaltending situation. But, depending upon who our the goalies are, maybe try and go that way. So, Anthony, back on the clock here. Let's see. Chris took Roman Josi there, getting some good value there at pick 54. How do we feel about your blue line so far?
The computer has sniped Rasmus Dahlin. So I guess the same Illuminati has access to my computer because every time I put him in the queue, either you, Adam, take him, or the computer has decided that's the one they want. So I once again have to worry about that. But interesting to see where Yahoo has Josi ranked all the way down here. They have his projected total to be a little bit higher than last season. So they kind of feel that he's going to be the guy who's going to have to do all the damage in Nashville. And I am perfectly okay with that mindset.
All right. Now I go Quinn Hughes there. I get a strong second defenseman. I gotta, you know what? I'm gonna go Frederick Anderson. No, I want a guy that's gonna get a lot of starts. Give me Tristan Jarry. I know it's a reach, but I gotta at least have one good goalie that I know is gonna play a lot. He's gonna be the guy that, like I just talked about with the workhorse. So could have gone Freddie Anderson, but I'm gonna go with the Penguins there, even if it is a tad of a reach. All right, let's look at some teams right now. Let's take a look at Team Corey. Elias Peterson, JT Miller, Jamie Benn, Dougie Hamilton. He gets his goaltending short up early there with Colorado and Nashville. So not a bad start for him right there. Let's take a look as the draft moves along. All right, Chris is coming up on the clock. Let's take a look at Anthony's team. Really strong up front there. Good two centers there. Good strong blue line. Gets his top goaltender there. So Anthony off to a strong start as well. And then with Chris on the clock, let's take a look at his team as he makes his decision here. Kyle Connor has eligibility at center. Clayton Keller, which, let's face it, we knew he was going to take Keller at some point. He got him. At some point he'll take Logan Cooley too, so look out for that. Jason Robertson with his first pick. Roman Josi. He gets Scheifele on the bench, so he's already got his three centers. He's got Dallas. He's got a very strong goaltending tandem there with Ettinger and Hellebuck. So Anthony back on the clock here. I'm going to predict he's got to look right wing at some point, but it's still early in the draft. He's still kind of got to go best available, but we'll see what happens here with Anthony.
I'm going to shore up the goaltending.
There you go. He gets Sergei Bobrovsky. No, I'm sorry. You took Freddie Anderson. That was the pick. The clock moved on me quick.
Yeah, it's moving
now I'm on
really quick.
Yeah, I said it felt like a quicker 30 seconds than or longer 30 seconds, but I don't know. I mean, Jack Eichel, he's still sitting out there, and he's got right wing eligibility. Got to take him. And
I just put him on the queue list.
Well, too freaking bad. Let's see. Left
my
wing.
own advice.
Do I go defenseman here, or we got any goalies? Again, you know what? I worry that I'm going to get in a situation where I'm not going to love what's out there. So let me just take, let me get my goaltending short up, Tristan Jarry and Stuart Skinner. A couple of directions I could have gone there, but the fact that I got Eichel, that fell to me, and he could play right wing, because you can always find centers. Centers you will find in later rounds. Wings start to get thin. So, I in this, with my current team construction here, to pull that up, I would absolutely move Eichel to the right wing, get my face-offs from a position if there was face-offs in this league. But same thing with Hughes with left wing eligibility. I would do that as well. Now we look, let's see, as Chris is on the clock. Anthony, let's talk about your team for a minute there. You got a strong two goalies there from the Metro. What pick have you been most happy about, and which was the biggest settle so far for you?
I think I'm very happy with the Heiskanen one. Getting him as a second defenseman. Probably more settling with Matty Beniers. Maybe Frederick Anderson. I wish I would have maybe shorted up a little bit earlier, but the goalies were just going. Let me see here. Here we go.
Now, John Carlson just went 101. So for all that talk we did about John Carlson and all the value we can get from, not one of us walks away with him. Not one. Anthony makes his pick there, and he gets Moritz Seider. So he's hot on the Red Wings blue line. I am back on the clock here. Stand by. Let's see. Still some decent blue liners out there. Let's look at the centers. All right. Chris Kreider's still sitting there. I cannot leave my boy out there any longer. Let's take you. And then, I want to have a good, strong top three defense here. I got 15 seconds to make a decision here. I don't know how I feel about this. Screw it. Sergachev is defenseman 3. Why not? Makar, Hughes, and Sergachev. I will take that as my defensive core. And Vince Dunn and Darnell Nurse go right after that. So a couple of defensemen off the board. A little run there.
I like
Anthony.
I definitely like a guy that can play both sides. So I'm going to go Brandon Hagel here. Left wing, right wing. I think he's a good spot for them.
There goes Tyson Barrie to Team 8, one of the defensemen I was talking about as a sleeper guy. And yeah, I anytime you position versatility in hockey is so freaking important. Like it really gives you that. To me, that's probably one of the things I value most is roster flexibility. Quite the run on defensemen now. Ekblad goes, Falk goes, Dobson goes, Hampus Lindholm, Luke Hughes, Drew Doughty, Tony DeAngelo, Rasmus Anderson. The computer is getting on the defensive train here. There goes Thomas Chabot, Gustav Forsling. I mean, it goes on and on. Tony DeAngelo, Devin Taves by Corey, Brady Shea, and now I'm back on the clock. Jeez, that was quick.
Decisions
is right. Let me take, I'm going to say maybe Huberdeau in a bounce back. I'm going to end up running out of clock there, and I get Matt Zuccarello. I could have been worse. I was very indecisive. I need more than 30 seconds. I'm sorry, boys.
The clock is not our friend today.
The clock is not our friend today. They need to figure out a way to change so we could do that. You know what? I believe getting somebody I'm going to go a little early on him, but just because he's got that right wing eligibility, I want to make sure I have enough right wings. So, because it's a position that the cliff comes quick and it gets very, it just doesn't, it's a barren wasteland once you get past.
I'm also going to go early on a right wing and kind of do a little bit of a stack here. I'm going to take Dawson Mercer going with Nico Hischier on the top line, and hopefully Dawson Mercer takes that next step with his points getting.
A lot of times with a guy like Mercer, like you worry about the pressure of like that increased expectations of production, but with the amount of talent they have around them and bringing in a guy like Meyer and bringing in a guy like Toffoli, like he's going to be able to take that step and kind of just do it at his pace and not do it like in front of everybody. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's going to be shielded. So Chris back on the clock here. We'll have to go over his team. We look at his team. He got his boy Cole Caulfield. Happy for you there. Troy Terry, another one of his guys. Dylan Larkin. So close to being one of the top guys. Every season he takes a little bit more of a step getting there. He gets Nick Suzuki, gets Travis Konechny, who should produce for Philly just because somebody has to. But you get Michael Matheson there. Let's talk about your team a little bit, Chris.
Travis Konechny, by the way, triple position eligibility. I don't remember him ever playing center. They had Caulfield all the way here in their expected rankings. I drafted them 126th. So I don't know where they haven't projected for only 31 goals this season, which I think is cute because he had 26 all of last season. So they're giving him 5 extra goals. I guess maybe they're thinking he's not going to stay healthy. Cole Caulfield is a 40-plus goal candidate. So if I'm getting him 126th overall, then I pair him with Nick Suzuki, and those two get to go out every night, have fun. They're going to lose a lot of games, but they're going to have fun.
And that's what it really matters. It's all about having fun.
Exactly. Hockey is a game. It is a fun game. And then I was able to scoop up Mike Matheson. I feel like the algo on Yahoo is going to just suppress all my Habs players. So this is one of those drafts where I'm going to collect a couple. And speaking of collecting, again, dual position eligibility, especially in leagues like this, if I can get him here, his ADP here is 167, so I'm well within range. But I don't remember Patrick Laine falling off a cliff completely yet. So I'm going to add another talented winger to my list.
The thing with Laine too is like, where is that offense coming from in Columbus after Gaudreau? So it's got to be him. I mean, I know he tends to miss a little bit of time here and there, but overall, like the value you're getting here, it's right, like you said, right within the ADP, and somebody's got to score goals in Columbus. They're not going to lose every game. They're not going to get shut out every night. So
I know this is one here. I'm going to do it. This league takes hits into consideration, so I will take a player who does nothing but hit.
Coming up in the last couple of rounds here, this our 5th mock draft here on Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network. Anthony on the clock, making one of his final picks here. I'm also on the clock here. Coming up, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with my final pick here. I think I know what I want to do on the turn. I'll be the first to finish. There goes Lehkonen, Binnington, Killorn, and now it's my turn to draft. So I'm gonna wrap this draft up on my end first. Gonna as my third and final goalie. I know we talked about going with the goalie tandem and one other approach. I'm gonna go with three guys who will probably be number ones. Even if Aiden Hill splits 50-50 with Logan Thompson, I'll take that as my third goalie to go behind, and he'll help some of those goals against numbers that might get inflated with Pittsburgh or Edmonton. And then for my final pick, we're gonna look at forwards, defenseman. Evander Kane's still sitting out here. When he plays well. He's got chemistry with Edmonton. He's going to get power play points. I'll make that my last pick of this draft.
With my last pick, and considering the season that he had last year, which was a huge struggle, the fact that Jonathan Huberdeau kind of falls to me at the end here, I feel like I have to take that chance, and hopefully, in Calgary, he could turn it around. I can't go wrong. He has, center, left wing, right wing. He has eligibility everywhere, and I feel like that's a good value at the end there.
And I was considering taking him early, and then I kind of slept on him and got away from him. So good for you for being able to capitalize on that and get him late rounds. There goes Jacob Markstrom there. So certainly not a bad pick either for a late round goalie. And the draft is over. So that one went a lot quicker than ESPN. We thank Mr. Corey, potentially Stillman, for being a participant as a human in this draft. Let's go team by team here. We'll go through the four humans teams before we get things done here on this fifth mock draft here on Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network. Let's take a look at Chris's team first, since that was on the screen when I clicked on the tab. It was very convenient. A lot of position versatility here, especially up top. There's no position that I really think you're thin at in terms of having, needing more guys just to be able to roster bodies. But one thing I do notice is that you did not take a third goalie here. You roll with the two. You got a workhorse in Winnipeg and you got a workhorse in Dallas. So not the worst move.
I'm assuming both those guys are going to play a ton of hockey. So if I can lock that up, and if they're playing, if they're going to flirt with, I would say 55 to 60 games, which is a lot in the modern NHL, then I feel like I'm in a good spot. I also feel like despite waiting on defensemen a little bit, I came out pretty well. I have no idea what Jacob Chychrun did to whoever came out with these rankings, but his X ranking, which I have no idea why they have that. But if he's projected to have 16 goals and 38 assists, and I get him with the 187th pick in the draft, this is a friendly reminder to not worry about what Yahoo says, right? Worry about what your rankings say, and worry about whatever draft guide you decide to end up using, aka ours and fantasyalarm.com. But the same thing as well in leagues where there are positions that are assigned and not just forward, I give a little bit of a bump to guys who have dual position eligibility, because that means it gives me lineup flexibility and I can move guys around. So guys like Travis Konechny get a small bump. Clayton Keller and Kyle Connor do not play center. They don't play. But if they're going to get the eligibility to be there, it means on any given night I can flip them in there, right? You got two left wingers, two right wingers. One thing that Yahoo doesn't do, which again, I wish they would, they can become something. There's no utility spot here. So you don't have a free square to just throw a player and say, oh, I can get away with it. No. So if that means on any given night, if Jason Robertson is in my lineup every single night, and then I don't know, Travis Konechny plays and Line plays, where am I slotting in Kyle Connor then? Where am I sliding in Line? I need the roster flexibility. I don't want a guy sitting on my bench because I don't have a spot for him. So guys who have more than one position that can be played, I want to take advantage of them. I targeted guys who can shoot the puck, right? Troy Terry, Cole Caulfield, Jason Robertson, Kyle Connor. These are guys who are shooting the puck. Good things happen when players shoot the puck. My defense will be what it is. I expect good things from Mike Matheson. I expect Luke Shen to block and hit as many players as he can find. And he is in Nashville. Nashville is not going to be a very great hockey team this year. So he's going to be out there killing penalties, takes a little bit off the Roman Yossi's of the world, takes a little bit off the Ryan McDonough's of the world, the Tyson Berry's. He knows his role. He's going to play within it. I am honestly, of all the drafts that I've done, despite not being able to get my favorite Cale, I feel like this is the most complete team I have put together.
I would agree with that. I mean, you like you said, position versatility. Like In basketball, everybody plays guard and forward. Like it almost doesn't matter. It's centers that kind of stand out in power forward, where that becomes a little bit harder to find quality. But you look at baseball, like how great is it when you have a guy that can play second base and third base, or second and short, that middle infield or corner infielder, or outfield in some random infield position.
Yeah.
In
I have
hockey,
5 guys playing right wing, and I got 2 spots. So I need guys who are going to be able to slot in somewhere else on any given night, which means if I'm lucky, even on like an 8 to 10 game slate, I can get all 5 of my right wingers into the lineup somehow, barring injury.
And that's the thing. It's you can build your team. You have to fit these. You have to put the round peg in the round hole with these positions. Like you said, you don't get the free score utility, but just being able to move these guys all over the lineup, a guy's value will I'll sometimes draft a guy not a lot higher, but definitely a little higher than I should if I know, like, okay, I can move him to wing, I can move him to center, whatever it is. I know he's a guy that I can slide around. I mean, remember when Brent Burns was a right wing and a defenseman? I mean, his value. I mean, because of that, it's like, wait, I can get a guy, I could slide him up if I needed to. I mean, that's not the most ideal position doubling up, but, hey, it was just something that made him unique. Now, let's look at Anthony's team as we pull that up here. So why don't you run through your team for us a little bit, Ant?
Yeah, well, started off with Tage Thompson there. Kind of did not get the button pressed in time for Jack Hughes, but Tage Thompson was ranked higher, still a very good pick. Heischer as the other center, and like Chris was talking about, there are some guys in here that I needed to have dual eligibility. Brandon Hagel, Matty Beniers, Dawson Mercer, who I kind of picked up maybe a pick or two early so I can stack him with Nico. And the defense I'm very excited about. Adam Fox. I feel like Heiskanen, Sider, and Letang fell to me. And if that's going to happen, I'm going to do that every day. Morgan Riley off the bench. Leakinen was a guy that I had last year that provided a lot of points for me. So I decided, especially with, the dual eligibility, I thought was a good one. And like I said, Huberdeau, considering the fact that he struggled last season, a lot of people are down on him. We don't know how Calgary's going to play, how he's going to play in that system there. But if he can have a turnaround and be that top guy that he was drafted for last season, I think that is a good pick. He could play center, left wing, right wing. So I like that. And then with
When
the
has
goalies,
Huberdeau played center?
Yeah, when? Maybe like a couple of plays.
He must have taken 10 faceoffs last year when Daryl Sutter just wanted to send a message to him on the third line. And Yahoo's like, here it is, man. Now you're a centerman.
That's the
That is a
reward.
great pick, too, by the way. Getting him that late with triple position eligibility and a chip on his shoulder. Okay.
Yeah, if they're going to add that center to him, might as well go after it. Hockey, the goalies, obviously I diverted from my usual, and I went with the top one. I went with Shesterkin, Freddie Anderson, who I think is going to have a really good season. I think Carolina is going to have another really good season. And Logan Thompson, I don't know how the time's going to split with Aiden Hill, but in that Vegas team, you can't go wrong as your third goalie. So I like the team. I really do like this team, especially since this is a little bit different format that I'm used to. I'm very used to playing the ESPN format. So this was a breath of fresh air.
I like Lehkonen, especially in a league where shorthanded points come into play. And even in a banger league, like, listen, 94 hits, like, listen, it's not a ton, but that means he's getting you a hit and a half a night, basically. So certainly can help there. The Huberdeau value you talked about late was great. And yeah, you do have a really strong top 4D there. And if one of them gets hurt, so got Morgan Riley as your bench option. So that very well built team. Now we'll take a quick look at Corey Stillman's team. At center, he's got Pettersson, he's got Miller, he's got Kopitar, he's got Lind. I love Lindholm. He's got some strong centers there. You know what's funny? How is Joe Pavelski not right wing eligible? I feel like he's right wing eligible in every other fantasy format. Yahoo gives position eligibility away like it's Halloween candy.
The same thing with Anze Kopitar, who's got left wing eligibility when he's taking every face off in the defensive zone. I guess the left wing is if he gets kicked out of the face off circle, then Yahoo must be like, oh, he started on the left side for this one. So I agree with you, Adam. I have no idea how they come up with this.
I mean,
But yes, Joe Pavelski deserves a right wing eligibility, and he deserved it yesterday.
you know what it might have been? Maybe like the guy who handles position eligibility for Yahoo, like he got into work late one day and saw Kopitar's taking a faceoff on the left side. Like, oh crap, how long has that been going on? I better give him left wing eligibility. Maybe he's playing that whole game. I don't know. But yeah, so interesting, good team here, well balanced all around. Goaltending, good but not great. I mean, Georgiev is a good number one guy there. Saros, I like him. He's going to play a lot, but it all depends on how good Nashville is. And Binnington is the Tom Wilson of the crease. So we'll see how that goes.
It's a very fair assessment to Jordan Binnington. That is, I feel like Tom Wilson and him should be in the same room. Not on the same team, because that's too much drama for one team, but they should definitely be in the same room at some point.
I mean, they should be like a podcast pairing. I mean, I feel like they would do well together. I feel like their tempers would go well. So we'll take a look through my team before we talk about Rick Jeanneret quick and get out of here on another episode of Bettor Hockey Now. Anthony's inability to push the button in time was my good fortune. I get Jack Hughes there. Amazing to think if you hit that button, my whole build could be differently. I could have none of these guys right now. So yeah, I get Hughes as my first pick, and then I paired that with Makar as my 1-2. Let's look at the blue line here. I love, Quinn Hughes is a number one on a lot of teams, but just in case the curse does happen, I'm set there. I did not go to bench defenseman because I feel like I can find somebody here and there. Love my top three. Owen Power as a 4 defenseman is fine, but I am banking on, if Rasmus Dahlin is going to have all this production, Power is going to be the number 2 behind him. But so hoping he takes a step forward there. Looking at the goaltending, just like Anthony said, it's going to be close to a 50-50 split in Vegas for the defending, Pacific Division champs and Cup champs. Then, I'll take my 50 there. I'll get my wins, and I'll get plenty of opportunities there with Jari and Skinner. And then, down the middle, got no problems with Hughes, Eichel. Chris Kreider played center when? Matthew Barzal is a bench center there. Again, somebody's got to put some points in the net. It's going to be Horvat and him for the Islanders. And, left wing, I feel strong with Panarin and Kreider and Marchessault and Kane. And also Hughes apparently plays left wing. And then Jack Hughes with the right wing eligibility. And, there goes the draft board. So maybe I should
Yours
take
was
that
the only team as well. You had 2 players with over 300 shots. They came from the same team as well. They have Jack Hughes and Timo Meier both finishing with 325 plus shots. So I think the Devils are going to have at least 40 shots every given night if those two are collecting 300 plus, because Toffoli still exists. Dougie Hamilton can still shoot the puck as well. You got Dawson Mercer as well who can shoot the puck. So I'm expecting Lindy Ruff to just run his guys out there and just have a shooting parade every night, which is good, I guess, if you want to stack a goalie against them. He might give up 5, but if you're chasing the save bonus, he is going to get it maybe midway through the second.
And from a gambling perspective, whoever's playing the Devils, you might want to look at the over for saves for the goalie. You want to, those are things you want to look at for sure. If the Devils going to take a ton of shots, that goalie's probably going to hit an over on the saves. So keep in mind that. But
assuming he doesn't get pulled because the Devils scored 3 on the first 7 shots in the first 5 minutes.
Your screen went off too quickly, but your bench with Marchessault, Evander Kane, and Barzal, I really like that. Those 3 rounding out the team there. You already have a strong offense, and to have those 3 right at the bottom to fill in whenever needed, you're not going to get any lack of points when it comes to those 3.
I mean, I don't like to toot my own horn, but I am.
Oh.
Sorry, I clicked. As I'm, that's how.
You didn't want to toot your own horn.
You didn't want to toot your own horn. Literally, he's like, I'm done. I'm done.
In the middle of trying to toot my own horn, I hit the wrong damn button, take the wrong thing off the screen. So I'm going to take that as a sign to shut the heck up and not go any further. And not
toot my own have horn. All that power on that team.
It's true. It's true. I can't do too. I can't have that much. But
how many times have you drafted Chris Kreider now?
Don't let's not go there again. We had Kreider and Price a few weeks ago. We had the Wings last week. Let's we've made it through 50 close to an hour here. But me and Anthony were taking some shots in the draft at each other with the Rangers and Devils back and forth. But that's been mild. That's pretty good.
It has been. It's been very mild. Not even a dry
We
rub.
both took each other's players, but it's going to be very successful, right? You have Hughes and Meier, 2 guys that are going to score a lot of points, and obviously. You stack those 2 together, and that's going to be a wild tandem. I got one of the best goalies in hockey. when you're playing fantasy hockey, you don't care what team these guys are playing on, even if they're a team you despise. You don't care. You're going to take the best player possible.
No alliance.
And there's also credence to the theory, like, all right, listen, if a team I really don't want to win is going to win a lot of games, I should at least get something out of that. I should at least,
Absolutely.
not be as upset and, soften the blow a little. So that does it for the 5th mock draft here on Bettor Hockey Now on the Bettor Sports Network. Now, we try to end on a good note. Obviously, some sad news in the hockey world coming down this week. Legendary broadcaster Rick Jeanneret, he called his first game with the Sabres in 1971, retired in 2022. If you can't count or do math, that's over 5 decades. This man was the Sabres play-by-play guy before disco. Passed away, and it just, one of the legends of the game. Chris and I were talking off air before we started recording, and there's very few guys, especially left now in the game, that like when you hear the voice, you don't even need to see the highlight. You know what team it's going to be, and he is one of those guys. And just to kind of go through, there's not a ton of accolades for a broadcaster the way you have goals and assists, but just to kind of run through his resume, he's a member of the Hockey Hall of Fame, won the Foster Hewitt Award in 2012. He's in the Sabres Hall of Fame. He's one of 11 people to have his banner raised in the Sabres arena. And this is one I found interesting. And this is from an NHL.com article, not Wikipedia. So it is true. He is an honorary member of the Bare Knuckle Boxing Hall of Fame. Don't try rushing that man's broadcast booth in the middle of a game, because he'll just turn around, not miss a beat, and knock you out.
He could have played on the fourth line during his broadcasting career at some point for the Sabres.
I mean, even
not missed a shift.
I mean, even in the dark days after the Eichel trade, he probably could have got out there and maybe given him 4 or 5 quality minutes a night. I mean, let's just go back to the Bare Knuckle Boxing Hall of Fame. You're an honorary member, so that means like you're respected amongst the people who are in there. I would love to know, man. Give me somebody that knows Rick Jeanneret bare knuckle boxing stories. Would love to hear about those, because like,
yep.
Brendan Burke for the Islanders TV is not going to be in the Bare Knuckle Boxing Hall of Fame anytime soon. You're not going to see that out of play-by-play guys anymore. But we thought,
how fitting that it's him as well. Like,
yeah,
I mean, people who could be in there. You're like, yeah, that makes sense. You hear it at first, you're like, hold on, but then you listen to it, and you're like, yeah, I can see that.
Nothing says Western New York like a guy who can beat you with bare knuckles and call a hockey game.
There's a lot of great broadcasters, especially in hockey. Obviously, one of my favorites, Doc Emmerich. Where does Rick rank amongst the top, broadcasters in all of hockey?
So, I mean, you got to kind of, I think, divide American and Canadian because I feel like they're their own, like I didn't grow up with Jim Houstons of the world and the Bob Cole. So as much as I recognize that they're legendary voices, I mean, Jim Houston with the EA Sports game, so he's a little bit closer to home. But, for me, Doc Emmerich, obviously, you had the privilege of him being the Devils guy for many, many years before he got the national gig when NBC got hockey in the, early 2000s. So, Doc's got to be up there. Jeanneret's certainly up there. Bob Miller from the Kings is another one. And then, there's a lot of these old timers that, you're trying to think of some of them, but Jeanneret is an all-time great. I mean, I don't know if I'm ready to put him at 3rd, 5th, whatever, but because it wasn't just a good fundamental play-by-play guy. He had character. He was, he had his own unique stamp on the broadcast. Like we said, like the voice, the style, the everything, like you knew there was no mistaking who was on the call, on WGR radio or Empire Sports Network that used to exist back in the day when you turned the game on. So, another thing we were talking about before is, we're losing. There's very few long time, like you're not going to have a lot of these guys that were with the teams 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. There's a couple left, but you don't see that a lot nowadays. I mean, you're a Mets fan. You have the Subway to Shea podcast that you're on. Gary Cohen, Ron Darling, and Keith Hernandez, arguably, and it's really not even an argument, best baseball in the team in the bigs in the booth. And they've had that chemistry for a while, and they'll go together. Like that might be like one of the last like trio or broadcast teams that really stick together and just are iconic and always at the top of their game.
Yeah, they just got to, I think it's 18 years. They just eclipsed what was Ralph Kiner, Lindsey Nelson, and Bob Murphy, which was the longest trio before that. I think a big thing for broadcasters, for me, I don't know for you guys, but I like how is it partial or impartial they are to both teams, where I get that a lot, especially from the Rangers announcer. I think that he does a great job.
Sam
Rosen being fair to both
longtime
teams.
guy.
Yeah. And, same thing with Doc Emmerich. If he's excited about one goal, he's excited about the other one. I mean, these guys, that's what I look forward to when I'm hearing, and that goes for any sport. I want to see fair calling throughout the entire game for both teams.
One thing I'm going to do this year, and I've always wanted to do it, is I'm going to rank once we get into the season a little bit, we're going to rank the play-by-play pairings. And we'll see if you got a choice between these two. Take this guy. Watch this feed versus this feed. That's got to come. But yeah, I mean, just the guys, they paint the picture of what's going on. And yeah, TV, you don't have to paint as good a picture. But for a while, Jeanneret was also, the Sabre games that the guy doing the game on TV was simulcast on the radio. And sometimes that's very tough to do, to really balance both and not ignore one audience or overdo it for the other. But he was one of the best. And we thought it would be appropriate to wrap up this week's edition of Bettor Hockey Now and put together some of his best calls with a little video there. So again, condolences to the Jeanneret family and to Sabres Nation, who, I know Jeanneret retired last year and that baton and torch or whatever you want to call it's been passed, but still a voice for 50 years of a fan base. Our condolences to you from here at Bettor Hockey Now. But we will be back next week with another edition of Bettor Hockey Now here on the Bettor Sports Network. Mr. Christopher Merez, I'm Adam Bernard. Talk to you soon.
Starting right back to the Whalers line and over. Leaves it there to Mogilny. Flips it in front of the net. The shot. He scores! Fontaine from Alexander Mogilny. And Buffalo takes a 2-1 lead with 51.8 seconds remaining. In over the line to Savage, cutting it back. And oh my, I don't believe it. Ladies and gentlemen, another miracle. Dominic Hasek, holy mackerel. He's going in on goal. He shoots. He